panelists, can you switch on the video? We'll get started. Mr. Manoj, is there any more issues? Can I request all the participants to mute the video? Mr. Jaishankar, I hope you have joined. Mr. Manoj, I think you have to make Deepthi ma'am the presenter. I see Deepthi, she was a name in the guest actually. You need to move it to presenter. Hello?
Done, sir.
Done. Okay. Yeah. Now, is there any video audio issue with Professor Vijay Kumar? Dr. Vijay Kumar, are you able to see me as well as hear? I'm unable to see you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I am able to hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I think your camera is in the very front. You might have to push it slightly back, sir.
Is it better now?
Yeah, but still it can be better, I feel. Similarly, Deepthi ma'am, can you switch on the camera?
Good morning. Good morning.
Sir, my camera is on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good morning, Mr. Jaishankar.
How are you?
Professor Krishna Kumari. I am doing fine, sir. I am doing fine. Thank you for joining. Yeah, our other panelists have also joined. You can meet Mr. Dr. Vijay Kumar, the Chief Investment Strategist with Jurjit Financial Services. Seasoned campaigner for the past 2 decades on a lot of budget analysis forums, in fact. And ma'am, you can switch on your camera, Deepthi ma'am.
So my camera is on.
On. Manoj, can you check? What is the issue?
She is visible now. She is visible now.
Okay. No issue. Okay, no issue. Yeah, maybe in my patch, this one it is not coming. You can. So yeah, we will get started then. Please, can I request all other participants to mute your mic as well as switch off the camera so that we have a much better bandwidth. Okay. Thank you all for having tuned in. Sir, all the panelists can please switch on the video. MD sir, Jaishankar sir, you can switch on. That announcement is only to the participants. Yeah. So for the benefit of all the participants who have tuned in, this is, you may be aware that State Bank Institute of Leadership, which is an apex institute of the State Bank of India, we've been connecting through various virtual forums on very varied themes ever since COVID has stuck in, and much of our engagement has moved to virtual platforms. And we have done a lot of programs, more than I think about 50 odd programs we have crossed in the last maybe 7 to 8 months. And we never wanted such an important, as the finance minister herself has said, when she talked about the epochal budget being on the offing. we thought that it's a fitting occasion for us to conduct a program on analysis of the budget, especially now that we have a huge requirement on seeing how our economy, just like the dose of vaccine that we are looking for, the economy is also looking up to a big dose. So that was the backdrop in which this particular budget has come about, and this particular presentation and what we call the virtual panel discussion by bringing in experts from very diverse themes like infrastructure or economics or bankers, and to ideate the various fallouts of it in the economy as the days progress is what is sought to be achieved through this initiative. So nice for all the delegates for tuning in. I'll just present the profile of the speakers so that we can take it off from there. I'll also invite our director to formally, sir, director, sir, you're there? Can you?
Yeah, good morning. I'm there.
Yeah, please switch on. So you can switch on your videos. Yes. Very good morning. So at the outset, a warm welcome to all the esteemed panelists and director, and also to all the participants. So I'll just introduce the panelists, and then formally our director will be welcoming them. I'll just tell the profile of the panelists. Dr. V.K. Vijay Kumar is basically a chief investment strategist currently with the Geojit Financial Services. He was a long-time professor of economics in a college by name Sri Krishna College in Guruvayur under the Calicut University. Dr. Vijay Kumar is very known for his articles in economic issues, which appears regularly in the print media. He is very active in a lot of discussions concerning economy in the various TV channels. He's a very, very regular contributor to various papers, you name it, the Hindu, the Business Line, Economic Times, Business Standard, Financial Express, Outlook Money, Mint, Financial Chronicle, Money Control. The list goes on. And he's in fact in a second innings as the chief investment strategist with the Geojit ever since he retired from the active professorial career of long, and is a very keen observer on a daily basis on the economy in the economic front, and he's a very, very regular contributor in all the print and video, audio as well as the video media that we are known of, and a lot of papers he has presented about 210 articles, presented about 12 papers in international seminars, about 72 papers in national seminars during his career. And as we know of, as at least I know of, he's there as a budget analyst for more than past 2 decades or so. So welcome, Mr. Vijay Kumar. And our director will be formally welcoming you as well. Now I'll just take to the profile of Mr. P.R. Jaishankar, Managing Director of India Infrastructure Finance Company Limited. Mr. Padmanabhan Raja Jaishankar brings with him a very rich experience of 32 years in the development, banking and financial institutions, financial domains. He's an expert in mortgages, finance, capital market sectors, infrastructure majorly. And before this current position, he was also the executive director of National Housing Bank, the apex bank for housing in India, as you all know. He has served as director and CEO of IFCL Projects Limited, chairman and board of trustees of IFCL Asset Management Company Limited, chief general manager of IFCL earlier. And he was also the board of in the Mortgage Credit Guarantee Corporation and IFCA Factors prior to this. He specializes in structured finance area, new financial product development, product initiatives, risk management, and other functions. He is known for his having structured the first ever mortgage securitization transaction in India and a number of other structured financial solutions for credit enhancements, takeout finance, reverse mortgages, etc. He has been actively engaged in assisting government in its various committees on sectoral policies, which includes leading the initiatives for formation of first dedicated credit enhancement company for the infrastructure sector. And just to you know about the importance of national infrastructure pipeline announced by the government a few years back. In the budget also they got a huge outlay. No other better person than perhaps the MD to talk about many of these initiatives. And he's basically he holds an MTech from IIT Delhi as well as an MBA from Faculty of Management Studies of Delhi University. Both, as you know, are very, very reputed institutions in India. So a warm welcome to you, sir. Yeah. Now I go to the next. Thank you, sir. I go to the next esteemed panelist in the panel, Ms. Deepti Srivastav. Ms. Deepti Srivastav is the General Manager in Indian Bank, Chennai, currently having posted after the merger of Allahabad Bank with Indian Bank. She's holding the planning and business intelligence portfolio there. She has very rich experience in working in the banking industry for more than 3 decades in various roles and capacities as an economist, as a branch head, as a zonal head, and a vertical head of in the corporate offices of banks. She has earlier worked with banks like Allahabad Bank, and also she had a brief stint in Bank of Maharashtra also. In short, I can say that she is an economist turned banker or bank economist turned planner as of now. And she holds a science degree from the Institute of Science Nagpur and a postgraduate in economics from Nagpur University. And she has also done the postgraduate banking diploma from NIBM Pune. And she is also nominated in the RBI Committee of Banking Statistics, as well as the working group for the review of customer codes under BCSBI, as you all know. Thank you, ma'am, Deepti ma'am, for joining. And yeah, a very warm welcome to all of you. Now, I request our director, Mr. Sarosh Patnaik, I will also introduce him. He's a very seasoned banker with SBI for more than 3 decades of experience. He's basically an MBA and as well as a law graduate, and had served in various circles in SBI. Before being posted as the director of SBIL, he was also the DGM B&O in the Ahmedabad circle. So over to you, Mr. Sarosh Kumar, for the welcome address.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kishan Kumar. It's a privilege for Institute of Leadership to have this distinguished panelist. At the outset, I'd like to place on record my deep appreciation for Dr. Kishan Kumar. So far as the virtual panel discussion, which during the COVID times, which we had started, it had started gaining ground so far as SBIL is concerned. The last 22 webinars, just I'm having the data, which we had put it in a live stream in Facebook and YouTube. It has come, the viewership has come 5.67 lakhs. So what I mean to say is the relevance and connecting with wide spectrum of issues and eminent personalities, it has taken its, and today is another day where we are connecting. The issue is awesome. At the same time, we felt we should not be left out. And SBIL has come back with a strong, distinguished panelist like Dr. V.K. Vijay Kumar, Chief Investment Strategist, is already introduced by Dr. Kishan Kumar from Geojit Financial Services, Mr. P.R. Jayasankar, Managing Director, IIFCL, Madam Deepti Srivastava, General Manager, Planning and Business Intelligence, Indian Bank. Here again, we will place on record. Here, the Indian Bank does a special mention as they have partnered with SBI last year and this year also in conducting this event. So this is the background, and here we have thought how we are going to connect this issue. Obviously, there has been n number of debates. If you 24/7 in all these TV channels, newspaper, everything is there. But even that, the discussion of this panelist, I can assure that there will be definitely takeaways so far as the what we want to have or what is in our mind also. So far as regarding this budget, for a layman, obviously being the panelist, you are going to take it forward. So far the nuances and what are the issues they are going to be discussed. But to a layman, first thing it comes into our mind, the COVID, the kind of things the entire country, the entire world has gone through this. And immediately after that, when the government has taken a bold initiative of farm laws to connect the farm's product with the market, that time the strong protest is still going on. In this backdrop, taking a budget and taking, and everyone was thinking that there would be COVID cess or there should be some other taxes, other kind of things. But during this time, the government has taken a bold and a visionary approach or visionary statement or a proactive statement which lays down a vision and roadmap to take both physical and financial infrastructure to great heights. The budget proposals have skillfully addressed the demand by expanding the role of government through a sharp increase of nearly 35% or 5.54 lakh crore vis-a-vis last year so far as the infrastructure and other capital expenditure is concerned. Government has committed significant resources to create infrastructure such as road, railways, metro, Bharatmala Pariyojana, National Rail Plan, everything infrastructure, the viability of electric distribution companies has also come to in their notice. What I'm trying to say is, if you're going to see all these features, then you can devise into that could be devised a 6 pillar of the budget. One is the health and well-being. For the first time, there has been a budget allocation beyond anyone's apprehension. Second, the physical and financial capital infrastructure was given real push, in a big push. Inclusive development of aspirational India, reinvigorating human capitals, innovation and research and development, minimum government and maximum governance. These are the 6 pillars. But few things it struck to our mind and it struck to everyone. For the first time, there is certain game changes. Something has been in discussion for quite a long time, but no one had the guts and gumption to take it forward. For the first time, in such a in the real time basis, they have taken the call. Like for the first time, government has taken a proposal to take up privatization of 2 public sector bank and 1 general insurance company in 2022. That's something, an awesome decision they have taken. Increase of FDI limit in insurance companies to 74% and allow foreign ownership and control. Then skillfully address the demand side by expanding the role of government through a sharp increase of what I have reiterated on 35% so far in infrastructure is concerned. Another thing which brings to my mind is something very bigger and very penetrative, which is very futuristic, is the educational policy, where 15,000 schools will be qualitatively strengthened. Second, for the first time, they have thought of going for 100 Sainik schools are going to be opened in the entire country, and 1 central university in Leh. It has got so many ramifications. But one thing, whether it is related to or not, but in January 26th, if you have gone through the news, with the Prime Minister's cubicle, he has invited the meritorious students from across the country to be there during that time. Is in Man Ki Baat, if you are going to listen, then his focus on the children of merits or education is always a profound impact in the entire nation. So many things have been in time and so many things have been come into this budget. Obviously, it requires the panelists like you people are going to take it forward. And furthermore, the idea of doubling the farm income and as well as agricultural credit has to be increased to 16.5 lakhs crores for this year. That is also a great going so far as the government of India is concerned. Here, the finance minister has taken forward in the difficult times a very forward-looking and positive and penetrative budget, and how far we are going to take it forward. We understood this much. Obviously, after your deliberation, we are going to understand far better. That is the basic idea. Thank you very much. You have come to our platform and you have given your time. Many thanks to all the erudite panelists as well as Indian Bank and to my moderator, Professor Dr. Kishan Kumar. Over to you, Mr. Kishan Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Saraj Kumar, for the wonderful introduction and also to lay the ground for further discussions. Now, I guess we can get going on the discussions. Let me put it this way. As far as the panelists is concerned, I know we will take the questions on a kind of a round robin way. I'll start with one panelist and then we can keep on. So we have ideated on a lot of questions and possibly we can take it up as per the competencies of our panelists. So I'll be perhaps posing more questions on infrastructure to our MD sir, Mr. Jaishankar, and perhaps a lot of macroeconomic questions to Mr. Vijay Kumar. And then a lot of banking, that banking has been one of the major BFSI sector, whether we are talking about the RCL, the bad bank, and, so many things have come in the budget, and all those such questions I'll be posing to our panelists from the banking sector. So in short, this is how we'll proceed, and let me take it this way. As we all know, that the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, when she said that she is trying to come out with a budget which is very epochal in nature and once in a century, at a time when the COVID has struck, after perhaps a century. And further to that, the pronouncement by the Prime Minister also, as you all know, that the stimulus packages the government has come out with prior to the budget 3 times, and he said in as many words that the 3 budgets, the 3 stimulus packages need to be taken as mini budgets. So you will see a continuum in that, is how Prime Minister said as regards the budget, or in the pre-budget discussion stage at all. And now that the budget has come, and as we all know, that the economic survey prior to that has also ideated on a lot of things, and perhaps it has served as a kind of an harbinger of things to come, and had articulated on various themes for growth, to lift the economy from the morass to which it has sunk into, and how it perhaps need to have a date with the debt, instead of the fiscal ox being still reading it. And we could see many of these things in the budget, ultimately, now that the budget has come. And the spending, the bump up that has happened in the spending part by the finance minister, and the stimulus has become highly broad-based, and with the hope to recover the economy from the challenges that it is facing currently. And if I were to ask you, Dr. Vijay Kumar, that what could be the 3 path-breaking initiatives in the budget from the macroeconomic angle, how do you put it, sir? Over to you, Mr. Vijay Kumar. I think you might unmute.
Yes. Am I audible now? Am I audible now?
Yes.
So is it a Q&A mode without a talk initially?
No, sir. It will be in the Q&A mode. It is in the Q&A mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Well, if you ask me the 3 major highlights of the budget, I would say
from the macroeconomic angle, I'm asking. Yeah.
From the macroeconomic angle, yeah. From the macroeconomic angle, the major highlight is the glide path to fiscal consolidation, because our fiscal deficit is now presently an alarming 9.5%. That is for this fiscal year ending 31st March 2021. Actually, it is way ahead of what the street was expecting, even economists were expecting. And we have to bring it down. Of course, one has to appreciate the fact that this is a very transparent fiscal deficit. Unlike in the past, we never had such a transparent fiscal deficit, which incorporated also the borrowings of Food Corporation of India. Yeah.
Yes.
So if you exclude that, if we had gone along the previous, path of obfuscating the fiscal deficit by resorting to off-budget borrowings for the Food Corporation of India, etc., the fiscal deficit would have been much lower. But then this is a very transparent, very straightforward deficit of 9.5%. But 9.5% fiscal deficit is for the center alone. If you add to it the fiscal deficit of the states also, it will be more than 14%. It will be 14.5%, which is certainly alarming. and 14.5% fiscal deficit for the economy as a whole is certainly not sustainable. Therefore, we need to have a glide path for fiscal consolidation, and the finance minister has come out with a glide path for fiscal consolidation, which puts the fiscal deficit at 6.8% for 21-22 and bringing it down all the way to 4.5% by the year 2025. So a clear glide path is there. So that is one very positive thing. Secondly, from the macroeconomic angle, well, the big boost to the budget to the economy is coming from the capital expenditure part. Even though the fiscal deficit is high, the fiscal the capital expenditure, of course, it is Mr. Jayashankar's area. Therefore, I'm not transgressing into his area. But let me say that the government, as the finance minister has proposed, 5.54 lakh crores of capital expenditure. Unlike the Pranab Mukherjee budget, which had a massive fiscal stimulus, that was mainly revenue expenditure. But this is fiscal expenditure, particularly the national infrastructure pipeline, on which we intend to spend around 111 lakhs of crores over a 5-year period of 2020 to 25. So that is the major macroeconomic fiscal boost as far as the macroeconomic strategy is concerned. And thirdly, I am very much impressed by what the finance minister did not do. More important than what the finance minister did is what the finance minister did not do, because there were all kinds of rumors that in order to raise money for financing the massive expenditure programs, including the massive expenditure on public health, the free vaccination and all that, so there were rumors that the government might introduce a one-time COVID tax. There were rumors that the securities transaction tax, STT, will be tweaked. There were rumors that long-term capital gains tax may be raised to 15% or 20%. And there were many economists who gave the finance minister the advice even to introduce a wealth tax, and also a long-term capital gains on the unrealized capital gains. Like that kind of advice were given. But then, fortunately, the finance minister has dismissed that thought process and has instead she is now focusing on using the stock market for mobilizing funds, because globally now we have a booming stock market, and foreign portfolio investment is coming in a big way. Last year in 2020, India received the maximum FPI flows in emerging markets. We received $30 billion, and more money is waiting to come because there is a liquidity avalanche in the global financial system, and the interest rates are at a historical low. Therefore, this is the right time to use the stock market and to use the capital flows for disinvestment, for privatization, and also for the fundraising. So the finance minister has to be appreciated for not doing what these experts asked her to do. So she has to be commended for not doing all these tax increases. So the tax stability part, we have stability in the tax system, in the corporate tax, the personal income tax, and the indirect taxes are in the jurisdiction of the council, the GST council. So the finance minister doesn't have much of a role there, only some tweaking of the customs duty that she has done. So this stability in the tax system, fiscal consolidation, glide path, and the macroeconomic stimulus coming through capital expenditure. These are the three things which I would like to highlight.
Thank you, Mr. Professor Vijay Kumar, for ideating on the three major planks on which the particular budget is built, and also, articulating the fact that there was no surprises. especially on the tax front. Thank you. Now I'll move over to our next panelist. I hope Mr. Jaishankar, you're there, no? Can you switch on your camera, sir?
He's there.
He's there. Okay. Yeah. Can I switch on? Can you switch on your camera, Mr. Jaishankar?
It is switched on. Switched
Uh,
on.
Switched on. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. This question, as we all, just now the professor, Dr. Vijay Kumar also pointed out, there has been a huge, surge as far as the funds availability, the capex importance that has been given to the infrastructure sector per se. And we also know that the management of COVID, the way India has managed, was unparalleled in the world, with the low death rates and relatively better flattening of the curve and so on. Much we could achieve compared to even very advanced countries. Nevertheless, as we all know, that there is a requirement of a huge social and economic infrastructure, be it health or defense. That was almost the same time that we faced all the Chinese aggression and so on. The kind of importance that is getting attached to the way sanitation, roads and bridges, you name it, water resources and so on. And the requirement of capital expenditure to be spent on, be it roads or railways or ports or health sector outlays, got a phenomenal push in this budget, as we all know. Can you highlight three major initiatives in this infra theme, in this budget, and the road ahead of how this particular investments are likely to benefit the country in the long run, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Vishnu Kumar. I think the first thing, I think, Dr. Vijay Kumar has mentioned most of the points in the macro, from the macro perspectives, and I completely agree with all of his remarks about how this budget is really unprecedented in many spheres. I think one aspect which I have to, if I have to, mention as a package,
Yeah.
This budget has perhaps laid the foundation for a new financial architecture for addressing the requirements, financial requirements of infrastructure sector. I think that's a very, very important aspect. As a package, it has done that.
Okay.
Of course, as far as the elements of this package is concerned, the institutional structure for asset monetization is a very, very important, one. Combined with the institutional framework for market making for bonds.
Okay.
I think these are very important aspects. And other than that, the kind of push that has been given for financing projects, enhancing the number of projects in the national infrastructure pipeline to 7,400 from 6,000 odd, and increasing spending by about 34% in the 2021 estimates from, from the 2021 estimates. All the sectors such as highways and Jal Jeevan, National Railway Plan, or for that matter, you take the case of the hydrogen energy mission.
True.
And in addition to all these things, the kind of textile parks and new technologies for Metro Light and Metro Neo, all the entire 2 Tier 1 cities.
True.
So I think the thrust of the budget is on infrastructure creation and creation of an institutional structure for financing these projects and playing a catalytic role for meeting the infrastructure gaps in the economy. I think, you can put it all in this form, and it's a real, it has exceeded our expectations.
I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And coming back to you, I mean, we know that in the last year, 2021, there was a shrink as far as the core sector performance was concerned, hardly about 1.3% growth we could see. But now that the budget has come and, we are focusing on a kind of an infrastructure-led growth path. And the various proposals, whatever you articulated now, in the budget regarding national infrastructure pipeline, and how far this is likely to boost productivity and spur growth and create employment?
Yeah, when we look at, the overall, the push which has been given, which I just mentioned, infrastructure happens to be an engine for the growth of, the economy.
Okay.
Looking at it from the transport segment, or for that matter, the roads, or for that matter, the social infrastructure like the Jal Jeevan and, urban infrastructure programs. These would go to, benefit, most of the sectors that are underserved, or, they need, if they are in deficit for, more service. That is one side. The other side of the coin is the kind of projects this will generate. Okay. Because, as you look at, the requirements and the demand side, you need to put in more, you need to pump in more financial resources to kind of, address the kind of requirements that are there. And this will go towards generating more projects and more, and that has a chain of linkages. So this, one of the major linkages this will, enable is employment generation, which you just mentioned. Other than that, a host of other, linkages are there with the building material industry, with the because we are looking at a whole value chain, value system in the process.
Absolutely.
That value system and the energizing of the value system is what is being focused on this. I think we need to look at a gamut of activities that will actually get spurred up. And that those activities in turn will, generate the necessary demand. And obviously, this will not only lead to, income generation, but also employment generation. I think, you have to look at it from a holistic perspective.
Okay. The multiplier effect and the virtual cycle that it can create, you mean? Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jaishankar. Hope you have some more time. You'll be with us for some more time, I guess. So shall I take
I will be. I must say that I must leave at around 12 o'clock. I have a flight to catch.
No issue. So I'll come back to you, sir. I'll come back to you with more questions. Let me take a question to our Deepti ma'am. Ma'am, welcome to you. And as we all know, from the banking side, as every other speaker, including our director, has pointed out, the budget seemed to be getting a big thumbs up, maybe 12 marks out of 10 for the pronouncement that it has made on the banking sector, especially the public sector banks, as somebody was saying it in a TV show. So much, it has never been articulated. Privatization has not been in so many, direct terms talked about in a budget. And first time the public sector bank, though there a lot of talk of Air India privatization and this and that happened earlier, nowhere that the public sector, couple of banks getting privatized, or an insurer getting privatized and all were talked about. Now coming back to the budget proposals as far as the larger gamut of banking finance, and there was also talk about the bad bank getting created, that was was no brainer. I mean, economic survey has pointed out many of those in the direction, and ultimately it were to result. So there are a whole lot of things for the stressed, banking banks in India to go forward to. Can you, if I were to ask you, what is the three major path-breaking initiatives in the budget, broadly in the, say, BFSI side, or including, you can add the MSMEs and stuff like that to that? Can you present to us, madam, what you felt as?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
please.
you, sir. Sir, a good number of budget proposals concerning banking, insurance, and financial services industry have been declared, and they have been, as you said, really welcomed by the industry. One of the proposals is regarding asset formation of asset reconstruction company, which will take over the existing stress assets of the banks. The underlying hope here is that stress loans will move of the balance sheets of the books of the banks, and what will happen is this will give a way to freeing up of provisions and the capital. This will allow the banks to go for more lending, and which would definitely support the revival of economy. And post COVID, this is really an important step. This is regarding the ARCs. Then, as we saw that announcement has been made that 20,000 crore
Recapitalization.
is worth, capital recapitalization for banks. This is also a positive step. It will definitely help in credit growth in the industry. Then you spoke about announcement of privatization of two PSBs and one general insurance company. This is also, I see this as a welcome move, because if we talk about insurance sector, now this will pave way to foreign insurers coming. Then even the FDI for the same has been increased from 49% to 74%. So number of players would definitely increase, competition would increase, and more penetration will develop here. These I see as major steps. Then when we talk about MSME, there also we can see that to support MSMEs, which have been the worst sufferers during COVID. As it is, MSME industry needs a lot of support from banks also and from governments also. Now, this time the budget, some proposals have come which are going to support the MSME industry. Recently, the definition for MSMEs has been revised by the government. Here, basic problem here is if you talk about startups, when we see they need a lot of support now. Many of the startups are part of MSME industry. Now with the proposal of having even a single person can form a company in a startup, this will definitely help many of these startups also. Okay. So this is how I see that banking and financial sector has been helped by the budget proposals. Now we have to see how all these proposals, how they take shape. But we are confident, having announced, the sufficient care would be taken, and these would prove to be a boon for the BFSI industry.
Thank you, ma'am. I think, as you correctly said, there are a whole lot of legislative changes and challenges that are there that will come before the parliament before many of these things get initiated. Having said that, in the budget, I'm sure that the government is serious about it, and they have not floated it just like that. I mean, the pronouncement from subsequently after the budget by DFS Secretary Mr. Panda and all others, Deepam Secretary and others have pointed out to the fact that government is committed to many of these initiatives is what the way they had articulated it. Thank you for that take, ma'am. And I'll again come back to our Jaishankar sir. Sir, you know, the one of the core plank of this particular budget has been, you know, on the whole belief of Atmanirbhar Bharat. The 6 pillars that got articulated and you know the various initiatives, and we were discussing about the way you know the how India is trying to catch up the global value chains and to be part of it. Can you also throw some light on how these particular Atmanirbhar initiatives, including the production-linked incentives and other things, including, you know, I mean, there is always a talk that when you crack defense production, I mean, you have cracked it. You know, so that kind of, you know, so much talk on that, but much little has been achieved as of now, as you know. And when you're talking about the global value chains, it is equally about competing with other countries, the Vietnams and Bangladesh of the world, when you're talking about a textile park or any such initiatives. So, what is your take on that as far as the major aspects of production-linked incentives and so on? Whether the private investments will flow into many of these things, and how the whole because, you know, obviously we need to bring in that play also here. Yeah. Over to you, sir.
Always, incentives which are linked to production creates a functionality for, higher levels of production. This is a normal, in the normal context, I can say the perspectives are in the normal context. But the kind of initiatives that have been announced here, almost 200,000 crores of rupees for over a period of 5 years, I suppose, starting from 21.
True.
I think that is a very, very important aspect, because I think this is again, it is unprecedented in the sense, I think the kind of amount that has been allocated and earmarked for this is very, very important.
Okay.
And over a period of time, I think 5 years, this will definitely yield its own, results. Textile parks, where 7 textile parks have been announced with, again, the kind of initiatives that have been included along with textile parks, because infrastructure development along with textile parks, that's again a very, very, very important, announcement, because this is actually, it's actually paves way for, the percolation of, opportunities as well as, income generation. So that is one thing. And it gives a lot of leeway for, or maybe a blueprint for, the startup of a new set of activities in this textile region, because I think it is high time that we whatever has been seen in the Bangladesh and other regions, that has to, we need to kind of prop up our own internal capacities, so that Atmanirbhar, that focus of Atmanirbhar is actually really absorbed. I think this is something which is very, very important, and I think the focus is on the right direction. And in addition to that, I think when you said that, we need to kind of look at the global competitiveness, how we can get into a scene where, we become globally competitive. We again, I look at it in a holistic perspective, where we have to bring in the activities or the interplay, I should say, of all the sectors, be it agriculture or be it, the textile or the infrastructure as a whole. infrastructure probably will, pave will weave the entire,
Absolutely, yeah.
you
So
know,
glue, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think it will bring everyone together because that is the engine which can shrink global boundaries and can make things happen without seamlessly, I should say. So I think we need to look at a higher level. So far, the focus on infrastructure has been at a very basic and at the need-based kind of requirement. But now in this budget, we are seeing a push, and we are seeing a push towards the next scale. And the next scale where we have an ambition towards achieving mega level developments, infrastructure developments. So I think this will, on one side, enable the entire mechanisms and not only mechanisms, platform for the Atmanirbhar mission, which will take off from that side. I think it's in the holistic context, it has been a very, very well thought out plan.
Okay. Thank you. And just to continue our discussion on that, we also know that, the heavy lifting that we are talking about cannot be done only by the government, and we wanted a lot of, private sector contribution to come in that, and kind of monetization has to happen on various infra projects and the existing and perhaps the ones likely to come up also. We have already started talking about asset monetization proposals. The budget has articulated on that. From a very layman's perspective, earlier also I guess there has a lot of been talk about monetization of railways and so on, railway properties and so on. But I don't think the substantive part has come in anywhere. And when we talk about infrastructure financing, we know about the bolt and BOO kind of projects, all kinds of mechanisms of financing and all. But coming to asset monetization, can you, since you are the infrastructure expert, can you think of any kind of models that has worked in the world where the governments which own huge assets, be it railways or be it many of these mega this one, the monetization, the successful models of monetization, sir?
Yeah, monetization is a kind of a mechanism which will support the overall funding of new generation of new assets. That's we look at it from that perspective. Looking at it from how these all evolved, we had the in the 90s we had the EPCs doing the majority of the financing, because it was all coming from the government's outlay for financing infra. And later on, with the quest for faster growth, we had to put in place the public-private partnerships. But again, we had a setback, and then the public-private partnerships also went through its own learning curve. And then we had the HAM, and now we are looking at a very fresh buff of air for financing infrastructure projects. On one hand, you see, financing infrastructure projects in a sustainable manner is what this particular kind of program assesses. Because you see, you look at it from a more larger definition of infrastructure, which is actually aimed at creation of public goods and public assets. So you look at it from a point of view of how this can be actually the volume of public assets can be actually expanded and can be taken to the next level of its technological competence as well as its efficiency and delivery mechanisms. So I think all three are very important. And from that point of view, if we need to look at the financial resources needed to create this, we need to kind of look at a sustainable mechanism, and the amount of financial resources that you can get from the existing financial institutions or the banks, I think it's all limited. And you look at another point of view of long-term nature. The long-term nature also, the finances of the banks have to come from the liability profiles that they enjoy today. So I think the long-term nature is also very, very limited. So from all angles, asset monetization is perhaps a very important alternative mechanism for financing future infrastructure assets. So it's not just this. You take the case when you just asked about the global examples. You take the case of the Channel Tunnel, London to Paris. I would put that as a very important, infrastructure project, which has been entirely financed by the private sector. And it's a 99-year lease, 99-year concession. And it has been done by a set of 203 banks. But you look at how this has been done. It has not been done, all the banks. It doesn't mean that all the banks have the capacity or the liability profile to lend 99 years. You need to look at, the manner in which they have gone about it. The way in one set of banks financing the first 5-6 years, followed by another set of banks financing it for the next 5-6 years. It has been a relay financing over a period of time. Take the case of Japanese, metro. It started in the year 1965. And the concessions are still going on, and I think it will go on even to 2050. So we are looking at such long-term ventures for mega projects. So when we need such long-term ventures, we need a new financial architecture, led by DFI and led by a kind of a secondary market for financing such projects. Asset monetization as an alternative mechanism for kind of generating, that kind of, proceeds to finance new infrastructure projects. So I think all these things, are the set of instruments for the new financial architecture, which will go into the process of future infrastructure development. So we look at it, we are trying to see and seek to get to the next scale of mega development. I think that's something very, very important in this budget.
Thank you for sharing those perspectives. Thank you, sir. I'll come back to you after one question to Mr. Vijay Kumar. Please be in the line, Mr. Vijay Kumar. Sir, we know that the core theme of Atmanirbhar resonated fully in the budget. The part A of the finance minister's speech was totally on the self-reliant India when she articulated the 6 pillars. As we know that the aspects of fiscal expansion and provide for growth was seen in each of these. Just now, Mr. Jaishankar also pointed out how many of those things evolve. Now, providing the immediate succor vis-a-vis betting on real growth by huge investments into infrastructure and things like that. So we have gone for the later now. That's very clear from the stand that we have taken in the budget. How do you see this bet panning out in terms of self-reliance and in terms of the spiraling and virtuous effect on the economy? You have to unmute yourself, sir. Vijay Kumar, sir? Yeah. Hello?
Even though the economy has been hugely impacted by the pandemic in this year, we are likely to end this financial year with a GDP contraction of around 7.7%. But it is important to understand the fact that there is a sharp recovery in economic growth in this quarter, in quarter 4. It started in Q3 and it is accelerating in Q4, right? And according to the IMF, India is likely to grow by 11.5% in the coming year, 11.5%, and 6.8% in 2023. That means for the next 2 years, India will be the fastest growing large economy in the world.
Okay.
And already I've been looking at the results, the Q3 results that have been pouring in. Today, as I speak, again the Sensex has crossed 50,000. It is an all-time high now.
It was about to kiss when I was looking at it. Yeah.
Which is pushing the market high. Apart from the foreign portfolio flows, another very important factor is the better than expected results. The companies are coming out with better than expected results. The results across the board, whether it is private sector banks, whether it is automobile companies, whether it is IT companies, pharmaceuticals, cement, across the board, the results are excellent. And if he succeeds in achieving this 11% growth for the coming year and 6.8% for the year after that, it will kickstart a virtuous cycle of growth. During the last 5 years in India, demand has been deficient. Even pre-COVID, demand has been deficient, and corporate profitability has been less than 5%. Less than 5% during the last 5 years. But now we are seeing a sudden turnaround in corporate profitability, not just in corporate profitability, not just the bottom line, the top line also is growing. And if we succeed in sustaining this growth, it will kickstart a virtuous cycle of expansion, leading to big performance of the capital goods segment. In the stock market is a leading indicator of what is going to happen. And one of the stocks which was not doing well was Larsen and Toubro, the major company in capital goods. But during the last several days, L&T is doing exceedingly well because their order flows are very good. And if you succeed in sustaining the economic growth, it will again kickstart capital expansion. I'm not talking about the fiscal boost to capital expenditure by the government. Apart from that, private capex will happen. So if the private capex and public capex through the fiscal boost happen simultaneously, it can accelerate economic growth going forward. And here, let me also bring in another factor. We are talking about the fiscal stimulus here, but it is very important to understand that the monetary stimulus has been very good, right? So the RBI has been doing the heavy lifting throughout last year. The repo rate is 4, the reverse repo is 3.35%. And now last December, inflation also has come down. Therefore, the RBI need not be bothered about inflation. And now for the first time, you get a housing loan for 6.9%. I remember when I took a housing loan for construction of my house 25 years ago, the interest that I paid was 11.7%. 11.7. Now you are getting a housing loan at 6.9% plus all the other tax concessions. Similarly for automobiles. Now because of social distancing, people are now preferring private vehicles, not public vehicles. So the private vehicle preference has led to a substantial increase in demand for two-wheelers and cars. And in some segments of the automobiles, I'm talking from the results coming, Q3 results coming, the sales are at an all-time high. I'm not talking about pre-COVID levels. I'm talking about all-time highs in automobile sales in some segments, right? Therefore, this low interest regime, this monetary stimulus, particularly the low interest, has turned out to be a major tailwind for the economy. A major tailwind. So now we are having a situation where this monetary stimulus and fiscal stimulus happening simultaneously is doing wonders as far as the demand is concerned. Though the government is right instead of providing an immediate succor to the people. Of course, last year we gave food grains free food grains to all families because we had mountains of food grains. Of course, through the 40 crore Jan Dhan accounts that we are having, particularly for the ladies, for the elderly, and for the physically challenged, more than 20 crore accounts, Jan Dhan accounts, money has been transferred. So remember, in America, the technology superpower in the world, they are sending checks by post, to the people. Now we are transferring money
DBT, yeah.
at a click of a mouse. So in that area, we have done exceedingly well. So we have combined the succor, immediate succor, wherever it is possible, that the focus of the government is long-term growth, because financial history, particularly the post-Second World War financial history, tells us that economic growth is the best anti-poverty program. And economic growth will be delivered by a market economy which encourages private initiative, which encourages entrepreneurship in a competitive economic system, ecosystem. And that is what the government is focusing now on. Krishna Kumar, for the first time in the history of budgets in India, a finance minister has taken the courage to speak of privatization. The word privatization had never been used. Formerly, Arun Jaitley took the courage to say that we are pro-business. We are pro-people, we are pro-business. For the first time, the finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, has used the word privatization. This is 50 years after Peter Drucker coined the word privatization. And remember, Margaret Thatcher implemented privatization in 1979 and in a big way in 1983. Even though we are a little bit late, we are better late than never. We are going on the right path. Economic growth is the best anti-poverty program. When there is growth, there will be tax buoyancy. When there is tax buoyancy, the government can implement a lot of inclusive programs, like the Ujjwala program, for instance, which are bringing help to the really needy people. So economic growth, sustainable economic growth, inclusive economic growth. The first requirement is economic growth. And there, this fiscal stimulus, monetary stimulus, all are working simultaneously. We are delighted.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for lucidly putting it.
Dr. Krishna Kumar,
please.
I will take leave at this stage.
Yeah, sir, with answering only one question, just a corollary to what I had taken up with Dr. Vijay Kumar. We were discussing regarding privatization, and you know that the government has come out with a huge disinvestment program also. If you could share your thoughts on that, now that there are a lot of PSUs also, be it Pawan Hands, be it all the container corporations and so on. What more you are likely to see, and what is the though this has been the divestment gets talked about. Even last year the target was somewhere around 2 lakh crores. We couldn't meet it. Is another this one. But so this year, how do you see this divestment panning out, sir?
I think,
and with that, I think, yeah.
I think looking at it from a more institutionalization of
lockdown.
Yeah, I'll come back to you, sir. Yeah, please, Jai Shankar, please go ahead.
See, the institutional structure which is actually being envisaged is more important, and I think privatization is a very refreshing thought process of the current plan. And I think it's one of the it augurs well with the number of institutions that had to be with the government, and maximize the governance rather than the government. So I think that's it goes very well with that perspective. At the same time, I think it is necessary to kind of bring in more professional ethics, and as far as the professionalization of and bring in more specialization into the different activities. And I think from that angle also this move will help. So looking at it, the banks which are actually which need to be state run need not be many in number. So I think we need to look at ultimately how many banks or how many financial institutions should government actually run, and over a period of time, how they can be more professionalized and more, given more independence to, perform according to the needs of the market. I think this goes well with that kind of a perspective. And of course, looking at it, the shareholding pattern, I always have said that it should be agnostic of the ownership. But the point is, which that government is trying to make by this announcement is the manner in which the professionalization can actually happen. So I think towards that, I think we need to kind of look at this with a very, very great expectation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jaishankar, for coming to the forum and sharing all your. We need to relieve Mr. Jaishankar because he has got other appointments to, and he has to catch a flight also. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming on board and sharing your thoughts, sir. All the very best. Thank you, sir. Yeah. I'll now take up the question with continue the discussion on divestment with Mr. Vijay Kumar and then come back to Deepti Madam also. You wanted to tell something, Dr. Vijay Kumar. Can you on the divestment front, please?
Yes, Krishna Kumar. Last year we could not achieve the disinvestment targets mainly because of the lockdown. Things were not moving. True. Everything was locked down. But the year before that we exceeded the target. The previous year, we exceeded the target. So if the government moves, very quickly, it is quite possible that the 1.75 lakh crores of divestment targets can be achieved. The privatization is, apart from that, I believe, the IPO of LIC also is going to happen this year. It was supposed to happen last year, but it will happen this year. Now, going by the previous experiences of privatization, of course, there's a lot of opposition to privatization in India. That is why even 50 years after Margaret Thatcher did it, in 40 years after Margaret Thatcher did it in UK very effectively, we are now thinking of doing that. Now, something which is not properly appreciated is that if the privatization is done in the right areas at the right time, it can reap very rich rewards. I will give you one example. A very success story of privatization was the privatization of Hindustan Zinc in 2002. There was opposition. There was opposition by the unions because when the Balco was privatized. Hello, can you hear me? There is some.
Yeah. We are able to hear you, sir. Yeah, there was a blip in between. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
When Balco was privatized, it was there was a lot of criticism. There was opposition by the unions, opposition by the opposition, and finally the government did it. And then the Hindustan Zinc privatization was taken up. The government got only a small amount of money from privatization, but actually what happened is now the government retained some 26% or so of the equity capital in Hindustan Zinc, and now the market value of government stake is 30,000 crores.
Ooh.
The market value of government ownership is 30,000 crores. And also, during the last 17 years, the government got 15,000 crores by way of dividend from Hindustan Zinc. 15,000 crores by way of dividend. Therefore, this can be very good if it is done properly. And now we are actually in the. Am I audible now? Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
So I was giving you the example of Hindustan Zinc. The market value of government holdings in Hindustan Zinc is now 30,000 crores of rupees. Okay. That is several multiples of what the government got when it divested. And also the government got 15,000 crores during the last 17 years as dividend from Hindustan Zinc, right? Therefore, the companies that has been identified for strategic sales like Concord, Pavan Hans, then BAML, Shipping Corporation of India. In this particularly, this is the right time. You have to strike the iron while it is hot. The market is booming, and funds are available in plenty. Globally, money is flying in search of better returns. So this is the time to make divestments in these areas. And if we raise money, 1.75 lakh crores of divestment can be easily achieved that year. And I'm a person who believes that the entire money should go into financing infrastructure, into the national infrastructure pipeline, which can transform the Indian economy for good.
Okay, thank you on that. And in fact, as you correctly said, I am reminded of Thatcherism. You know, there is no one size fits all approach when you're talking about privatization, isn't it? And you know, there has been a lot of methods which UK has used, including, I don't know, many of you had gone through that, might have come across. There is a concept of golden share in UK. You can have even one share and to get back the companies which government has privatized if you feel that they are not behaving the way they are supposed to do that. Right? So there are methods by which or best practices by which many countries have done it. We need to perhaps learn and take it forward. I'll come back to Deepti ma'am. Deepti ma'am, now that we are talking about the privatization and the nitty-gritties involved in that, you know, when the moment we talked about the bank privatization, there are a lot of hurdles to be crossed, including legislative hurdles. But there are already, again, you know, going to the fine print of it, people have also started telling it is not, banking sector ooze or cup of ooze are not going to be solved just by privatizing a couple of public sector banks. In fact, there are many votaries who say that a bad private bank is far more riskier than a good, measure of privatizing of many of these PSBs. Isn't it? So, looking at that angle, there is always a question of regulation also keeping pace when you are talking about financial sector or even insurance for that matter. Again, insurance, when you are talking about, maybe funds you might get when you liberalize from 49 to 74%. But then the cup of ooze of insurers are, the benefits, even to, how lesser insured are Indians. The market to be penetrated is not even tip of the iceberg. So many of these things, how are we going to, use this route of privatization or route of, looking at, as just now Professor Jekmar was telling, looking at, chasing the productivity angle. Yeah. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. What you said was correct. See, when a lot of talk is around there about privatization of banks and insurance companies, one aspect is that government is aiming to make use of disinvestment proceeds to finance various social sectors, then development programs and so on. Another angle is I also look it towards it as a push towards better performance orientation.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, because with privatization, many things would change. Not only the government stake, there is a initiative in between. It was also said that government might its stake back. I mean, maybe the banks would be required to raise money from the market, which already some of them are doing. Recently, we had QIPs, a very successful QIP by Canara Bank. Then even Punjab and National Bank, it also had its QIP very recently in the month of December. So, government's stake is coming down. While proposing to this privatization of banks, as already it was being discussed for last some years, that government wants major 3 or 4 banks, and it would like to have the others privatized. Smaller banks may be privatized. We do not know which will be the banks that would be selected for privatization. They have not named it because it was told that study is still on. That which banks would go for privatization. But competition with privatization, I look at it as competition would definitely increase. Banks will be more competitive. More of professionalism would be observed over there, and which would ultimately give us better banks would be providing still better customer service. I don't say that PSBs don't provide good customer service, but then with competition, automatically it comes,
The competitive element will come in.
Yes,
Yeah.
it will come in. It will come in. This is my view about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Coming back to Dr. Vijay Kumar, you know that the pandemic laid bare the underlying problems of the economy, the inequality it is facing, and despite the as we call the India Bharat divide. Unlike many other crises, this particular crisis obviously had issues on both the demand side as well as the supply side. And obviously now the budget also need to address both the angles. So when you're looking at allocations, there is already, the people who have gone to the fine print have started telling that there has not been enough done for, say, Manrega or even, the women and child development and so many such portfolios, perhaps even defense allocation. So how do you see this, sir? So striking a balance between, the competing
Well,
claims for allocation. Yeah.
I don't think it is right to say that the allocation under Manrega is not adequate. This is 20% more than the allocation last year. But if you look at the actuals last year, it is lower. But then last year we had the migrant crisis, and the people moving up back to the villages, and more money had to be spent on that. But now in India, we are in the unlock phase, not the unlock phase. The unlocking has begun in right earnest. And the migrant labor is moving back to the urban areas, into the towns and cities, and economic activity is in full swing. Actually, the unlocking is the best stimulus, more than the fiscal stimulus, whereas more than the monetary stimulus.
I know.
Unlocking is the best stimulus. Lockdown was complete lockdown. It was actually involuntary unemployment. People were prepared to work, but you were not allowed to move and not allowed to work. Now that is over. Therefore, it is not correct to say that actually last year the Manrega allocation was budget allocation was 61,000, but we ended up with 1,10,000. But in this year, the allocation is again more than 70,000 crores of rupees. And remember, we are running a fiscal deficit of 9.5% of the GDP.
Absolutely. Where will the money
come from? Money will not just come down as like manna from heaven. So government has to be fiscally responsible also. So this Bharat divide, Bharat urban divide that you talked about, well, as I said, the best antidote for non-inclusive growth inequalities is government intervention, public intervention, along with high growth. When you have the economy growing at, let us say, 7%, 8%, the revenue buoyancy will be there. And then you can have all sorts of anti-poverty program, even if it is a little bit leaky. Now, in this context, let me make another point. Yeah, one of the very serious attempts by the government in the recent months has been the agri reforms, the three controversial bills. To me, they are not very controversial, but then there's a lot of controversy about that right now. The serious attempts to increase the incomes of the farmers, the three agri bills. But there is great opposition to that, right? If these three bills are passed, this is my view, there can be difference of views regarding that. These are, as Gita Gopinath rightly said, as even Raghuram Rajan, who is not very much favorably disposed towards this government, even he said the reforms are in the right direction, but the way in which it is implemented, blah, 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 like that. These three reforms can increase the farmers' income substantially, but then there is huge opposition to that. This is the problem with our democracy, a noisy
multi-party democracy. Yeah.
So slowly it will. Remember, in the 1991 reform, there was staunch opposition. Remember the Bombay Club, right?
I know.
Suppose the Supreme Court intervened in favor of the Bombay Club and froze the reforms in 1991 for 2 years, what would have happened, right? So we have to learn from experience regarding this.
Thank you, sir. And coming back to Deepthi ma'am, when you're looking at equally since we are all bankers, bankers are looking at, good entrepreneurs. An entrepreneurial ecosystem hasn't been growing that high, as far as India is concerned. And unfortunately, COVID has further, dampened that spirit of India as being a very young country. It is not that we require teeming millions to look for jobs. In fact, there should be job givers also, the so-called engineers and MBAs and so on. Now, so as you said earlier, the one-man company and things like that, plus the startup ecosystem has to obviously evolve. In consonance with that, are banking systems tuned? Did you find any proposals matching that?
Yes, sir. As you rightly said, startups need to be, the banks need to back these startups. They need to, we need to support them through by financing. They have very big dreams. Nowadays, there's a number of entrepreneurs, maybe engineers, maybe MBAs, they are coming up with novel ideas and they really have big dreams and they are ready to work very hard to make their projects a success. For this, they definitely need support from finance in the form of finance from the banks. And banks have been looking at them with a lot of expectations. Banks are supporting them. For example, for my own bank, I can tell that we have a special scheme called In Springboard. Recently, and we have a tie-up with IIT Madras, and where they have an incubation center, and these startups are associated with that incubation center, and through them only we are getting the proposals, and we are financing them. Really a very enthusiastic young lot. They have very good business ideas. The banks have been supporting them, and I think that this has to be done, because as a measure which directly benefits the startups, these people are innovators. Government also proposes to incentivize them. There is a measure about this one person company that has come up. This will definitely remove many of the restrictions on paid up capital, turnover, and so many other things. And this will allow any type of company to get converted to the startup. Single man companies, man or woman company can be converted to a company, and they can have a startup. And government's full support is with them. It is shown through this recent budget proposal. Similarly, for credit flow to increase to these startups, there are some more measures in the form of other schemes of the government also. Like when we talk about encouraging the entrepreneurs, for Stand Up India scheme also, for the reserve category and women, the margin money has been brought down from 25% to 15%. Definitely, this is a big boon for the startups and similar other people youths who want to start a new business. So banks are supporting the idea. In this form, what will happen is they are getting good proposals from educated people who are full of ideas, very creative, and they really want to do something. And this ultimately will not only support them, it will indirectly support the economy of the country.
Okay. Thank you. And for the benefit of the participants who are tuned in, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box, because while taking up questions with the panelists, I have already factored in many of whatever questions that has come in. So I'll again, maybe we have only in the last 5 or 10 minutes, so I'll take up a few things with the panelists. So if at all any of our participants have questions, they can post it in the chat box, please. Yeah. Coming back to Dr. Vijay Kumar, talking about administrative reforms, or what we call the regulatory cholesterol, that is, hampering many of our developments or many of the full throttle way of functioning. It has been there, we have been watched it. We have seen that word minimum government and maximum governance, but the number of secretaries in Delhi are only going up. Isn't it? So I don't think what is the. I mean, nothing can be achieved in a year. Debureaucratization or reducing government and things like that. But in the administrative reform front, could you see a path in that? In this particular budget, I could see a few things like these senior citizens or our IT returns being pre-filled and so many such tech led initiatives. But did you also see certain administrative reforms of big bang nature in the budget?
Well, there are in many in this budget, but then a lot has been done in the new labor codes. The new labor codes which have been introduced, the number of regulatory requirements has been substantially brought down. And that is a big push there. But then, of course, as you rightly said, the number of secretaries at the center are going up. So that way the bureaucracy is expanding and the regulatory cholesterol also may be increasing. But the experience of the entrepreneurs is that most of the problems which they are facing are at the state level and at the local body level for getting clearance, particularly for MSMEs, which are the mainstay of employment. I remember we have more than 6.5 crore MSMEs in the country, and they account for 45% of the total employment. So employment generation for inclusive growth, that is one area where we have to focus. And for the MSME, the main regulatory issues which they are facing is at the local panchayat level, district level, not at the central level. So there are limits to what the central government can do. They have done whatever is possible, mainly through the labor codes. And of course, you talked about the concessions that have been given to the senior citizens above 70 for exempting them from not filing the IT returns if their income is only pension and interest from the bank deposits, provided both are in the same bank. There are lots of conditions for that. That is an administrative, liberalization. But then we have to liberalize the administrative mechanism more from the investment angle. So in that respect, what Madam Deepthi said regarding the legislative changes, the reform that are being introduced in the one-person companies, etc., that will be the way forward.
Okay. Yeah. Incidentally, there is a question.
One more point, Krishna Kumar.
Please.
Again, from the investment angle, the government has proposed, the budget has proposed. I have not gone into the fine print regarding that. A single code for SEBI.
Correct.
Depositories.
All the depositories, isn't it?
Depository securities regulation. All these four things are being merged into one. Perhaps that may be a major regulatory liberalization, but remains to be seen. I have not seen the finer prints and the details. The details are yet to come, I believe.
Okay. Sir, there is from one of our participants, I guess, Mr. Professor Srivatsan, who was ex-VC of IGNO. He has a question. Budget has announced the support of 50,000 crores for the new NRF. How do we, he's from the educational side, and as you know, the higher education outlays and so on, there has been a lot of talk, though the, we have come out with a new education policy. There has not been much talk about funding that in the budget also. I guess the professor is trying to ask, educational institution and industry leverage, how can the educational institutions and industry leverage to accelerate economic growth? The NRF funds, basically. Over to you, sir.
Is there a question to me, Krishna Kumar?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, in every budget, there is a big allocation. I've been looking at the allocation for education in the budget for the past several years. The outlays has been increasing, but the outcome part is not very satisfactory. The outlay alone is not sufficient. What is more important is the outcome part. And as far as the outcome part is concerned, actually, it is the state governments which have to move, because the education is actually a state subject. And the ball is more in the state's court as far as the educational productivity improvements are concerned.
Okay. Yeah. Coming back, there is a question on bad bank. On the bad bank issue, madam, the proposed structure of bad bank as articulated by the, Mr. Panda, the DFS secretary, is, it is a RCL and kind of another setup to ultimately sell it, is a combination of both, isn't it? So, but a lot of modalities to be worked out, and how, ultimately we don't have unlike developed financial markets, InvITs or REITs and other things, though we can talk about, there is no structured, credit markets as far as selling many of these instruments from these ourselves, or the combination of entities that we are talking about. What has been, because ultimately we need to realize whatever is salvageable from the bad assets. That it, and it has to be managed also in between the time duration that it is going to sell these assets. So the best of both of the RCL way of managing the asset and then ultimately selling it to the proper, people who wanted to buy it at a competing price is what is looked at. So can you throw more light on that, Dipti ma'am?
Yeah. See, the modalities are yet to be finalized. Discussions are on this. But how, as a banker, we see at it is, presently the ARCs which are there, from them banks are not able to get good pricing for the assets. Okay. This is a major problem which banks are facing. And when it is in form, certain portion is in the form of security receipts. Realization of security receipts is another big problem. Sometimes the banks just have to forget what has been come in the form of security receipts. So suppose now this move is from government to form ARCs, that these ARCs would be well capitalized. So definitely banks can look at them. The banks can have an advantage of getting a better pricing for their assets. This is the major advantage that we are looking at from these ARCs. And as of now, banks want to get rid of these bad debts, so they have no option. Whatever ARCs quote, they go for it, and so ARCs have an upper hand as of now. So this move is really a welcome move, and we are looking at it as the entity which would give better pricing for the assets of the bank.
Okay, so maybe the sort of legacy issues or legacy, NPAs and all, maybe some respite will happen from this, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And there is one question. As PSBs have done exceedingly well in PMJDY, Mudra, PM Swadhiti, demonetization, credit guarantee, how government will implement such initiative in privatization of PSBs?
As of now, also, see, only two. They have declared that 2 of the PSBs would be privatized. Otherwise, private sector is thriving. I mean, we already have private sector banks here, but still
they are also doing PMJDY and everything, isn't it? So all the regulatory pronouncements from RBI are equal to both, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they have some advantage. I mean, over the public sector banks have to play a major role here. But with only 2 banks getting privatized, I don't think it's going to make much difference. The remaining lot will definitely take care of it.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps we are running out of time, and perhaps the last question, last 1 or 2 questions to Dr. Vijay Kumar. now that we, as you just now said, the bulls have taken charge of the market, and for the past 2 days and perhaps today also, market has, I mean, I'm talking about capital markets, is surging like anything, and it has kissed 50,000 again, and I don't know whether it has come back or it has passed that and holding. So how do you see the capital market and the corporate sector post budget, and is it likely to continue the bull run?
Well, Krishna Kumar, the corporate sector performance will improve substantially in the coming quarters, in the coming years. Last 5 years, the corporate sector has not been doing well. Actually, the corporate profit as a percent of the GDP was close to 7% in 2007, 2008. Now it is around 2.7%.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
So there is potential for corporate sector profits to go up. I see the corporate sector profits going up substantially in the coming years, because we have reached an inflection point in corporate sector growth. Coming to the markets, yes, the above 50,000, I'm just looking at the markets now, it is 50,400. Sensex 50,400. Therefore, it is continuing to go up. Remember, this bull rally is a global phenomenon, not an India-specific phenomenon. It is a phenomenon driven by global liquidity injected into the global financial system by the leading central banks of the world. Right? It is important to understand that 40% of the dollars in circulation now, 40% was created post-COVID, right? 40%.
So the kind of simulation that has, stimulus package that has come in even after the Biden presidency.
Everyone has been printing money. And remember, $18 trillion of debt investments in debt securities, debt instruments, $18 trillion in AAA investments are now yielding negative returns.
Okay.
Because of the high bond prices. Bond yields are in the negative territory. So money is chasing higher returns. So this is a global phenomenon. And if something happens, we do not know. If suppose inflation returns, now everybody, the consensus is that inflation is not going to return immediately in the developed countries of the world. But if something happens and the central banks start, tapering. Remember the taper tantrums of 2014.
Yeah, taper tantrums. In fact,
tapering, there will be capital outflow and the market will correct sharply. That risk is there. But right now, money is coming in because of these three reasons. Number one, huge liquidity. Number two, historically low interest rates. And number three, the Robin Hood phenomenon. Retail investors, the Robin Hood platforms, charge-free platforms. And since people are working from home, they are also trading from homes.
The Zerodas of the world have made money. Yeah.
Is pushing the markets high. Yeah. Markets are overvalued, but then when you factor in the Schiller index, for instance, we are all familiar with the Schiller index. So if you factor in the low interest rates are also, then the PE ratio is not very high. That is one argument. But I belong to the camp that believes that the market is overvalued now, but the overvaluation will persist so long as the interest rates are low and money is coming from the developed countries in large quantities.
Okay. Sir, the last question to you. What are the three big misses in this budget, sir?
Three big misses in the budget.
Yes.
Oh, well, you can point out many misses, because if you look at issues from your angle. Yesterday, a friend of mine rang me up and said, there is no increase in standard deduction for the salaried class. That was his main grievance. I told him that this is not the year for exemption. This is not the year for tax reliefs or reliefs on any ground. I believe the people of India should tighten their belt for this year and be on the side of the government to augment the revenue for the government. And you can think about the tax relief for the middlemen, for the middle class, tax relief for the senior citizens, like our friend OTS Nambia, whom I can see there, and the people like me, we can claim that next year. But
Okay.
for the present, let us be on the side of the finance minister and try to contribute as much as possible to the government's kitty.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I'll come back to you in the vote of thanks. Ma'am, over to you, Diti. Ma'am, when the Big Bang reform part of it in the banking sector, including the issue of privatization of PSBs and insurance companies, one way of looking at it is the productivity. Is it also a clarion call for the existing PSBs to shape up? What is your take on that? And be sending a clear message that the laggards cannot persist. If you look at the way mergers and other things have also happened, the first dose of merger was in some form. The second dose was they had left out the laggards. Only the better part of the banks got merged, and now they're talking about privatization. So there's a clear message that the laggards there's no space. So is it a clarion call for the existing PSBs also? What is your feeling, ma'am?
I won't say, sir, it's clarion call for regular guards. In fact, it's for everybody. I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
Good.
those
Yeah.
who are already doing well, they should continue to do so, or maybe they should they should refine their processes, procedures, better their financial ratios. Because okay, for those who are not doing well, they can take it as a this thing indication. But for those who are doing well, also they should continue to do well, and they should try to better their performance year on year. This is the, because ultimately banking sector is it's part of economy. I mean the economy is dependent on performance of banking sector as well. So we should have a healthy banking sector. That's the way I see it.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, ma'am, the same question I am repeating what I had given to Vijay Kumar, Professor Vijay Kumar, to you also. What are the three big misses as you see it, ma'am, in the budget?
So here I would like to say there government is supporting development of I mean they want digitization to excel, but then I feel that some measures some more measures should have been declared for um, this digitalization, because in the when they are saying that we are taking steps in the budget 2021, it is resolving for strengthening the digital economy. Additional steps I feel to harness the opportunities and challenges faced by a digital economy should have been taken.
Okay.
This is one thing I feel. And then you spoke about these government schemes, Manarega and PMAY and all that. The whatever allocation was done last year and the allocation done this year, it is lesser than last year. So this also I did not understand. I mean, why it has been reduced? It could have been maintained. This is what I feel. So that ultimately what happens is our rural income and demand, it depends on these factors, these allocations. So it could have been maintained. This is what I feel.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And I think we had exceeded the time limit. It was very nice on your part to come on board, readily agreeing to our request. So I should really thank Professor Vijay Kumar for having come on board and sharing your thoughts. Thank you, sir, and thank you, DT Srivastava, ma'am. And the thanks are also due to your executive director, Mr. K. Ramachandran, with whom, in fact, Professor Vijay Kumar also shared the stage last time around when he was in Calcutta here. And please convey my regards to Mr. Ramachandran also.
Sure, sir.
Bank. And thank you for all the panelists who had tuned in today for this particular program. I'm sure that all the panelists have done justice to the themes which they had discussed. Professor Vijay Kumar, Diti ma'am, and the earlier panelist whom we had to leave because of expressing engagements. He had to attend a meeting and had to catch a flight and reach Bombay or so.
So he had also shared a whole lot of things on the infrastructure play, how things are going to likely shape up in the years to come, days and years to come. So thank you one and all, and thanks to my team of faculty members here, my senior and junior colleagues, including our IT team and our marketing team, and all the teams who had sent out this particular word in all directions and made the maximum. Thank you to all the delegates who can find time